All right, I think we're starting. I think we're ready, and whoever would join us during, that's wonderful. Cool. So hello, everyone. Happy to be with you here today. My name is Tom. I lead marketing here at Ever After. Today, we're going to focus on a very interesting topic, specifically in days like these of a market slowdown, and that's how to create a tech touch strategy with a white glove service. Now, I know there's a lot that has been said about tech touch and low touch and high touch and all these type of words, but today we want to take it to a very practical level and really help you guys out, the people who are joining us today, to understand how to create that strategy for real and what does that mean, what are the pros and cons and all that stuff. Just before we start, I want to remind you that please ask as many questions as you'd like in our chat box, and our panelists will answer them during or at the end, whatever makes sense, but feel free to do so straight from now. And second, that this is being recorded and we're going to be sending the recording post the actual session. Cool. So I think we're going to kick things off with a quick round of introductions, and I'd love each of you to kind of share a bit of your background, where do you work, and so on. Who wants to begin?
I'm happy to.
Go ahead.
Kick things off. So hi, everyone. My name is Seth Devev. I'm the Senior Director of Customer Success at Chili Piper. So for people who don't know Chili Piper provides advanced scheduling and routing software for B2B revenue teams. And our products can double inbound conversion rates. And ultimately, our real end goal is to help businesses reach new levels of productivity across organizations. So we love this topic. I've been in customer success for over a decade in both advertising tech and in SaaS. And yeah, I'm based in Boston. So thanks for having me come.
Thank you. Cool.
I'm happy to go. Hi, everyone. I'm Yoni. I'm VP Customer Success Manager, Customer Success at Singular. I've been at Singular for 6.5 years, and I'm responsible for the global CS team. We have basically teams across 8 countries, and we support our customers through their entire life cycle. Singular, if you don't know who we are, then we're a marketing attribution analytics platform. And our product certainly has kind of the very high touch, but also we have hundreds of low touch customers as well, or tech touch, as you say. Before CS, I was in diplomacy. And then that brought me to customer success. Thank you.
Nice.
And good morning from California, and probably evening for many. I'm Miranda Dekonsky. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Swiftly. Swiftly is a big data platform for public transit. And while we do hit heavily in the B2B enterprise high touch, we're dabbling with tech touch right now. And in my history, I also have other companies where the lower touch model was really relevant, such as HelloSign, because we had tens of thousands of customers. I've been doing this type of work for over 20 years. And in my spare time, I'm a mom. I have 2 little Shih Tzus, I hike, and I have a podcast. So I tend to keep myself a little busy. Super happy to be here to talk to you guys about this.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. Cool. So I actually wanted to start off with a quick poll to get a sense of the audience. So I'm going to launch it right now. All right. Cool. So what we basically want to know is if you already have a tech strategy in place, or is this something that you're working on right now, or no? Let's see what's happening. Okay. Almost everyone's answers are in. All right. So seems like most of the people in the audience are planning on having this strategy in place, and that's why they're joining us, which is wonderful. You're in a good place. Thank you for answering this. Cool. So let's jump right in and basically start from the beginning. So Miranda, why don't you take this? I'm curious to hear your definition of what is a tech touch strategy.
Well, I mean, simply put, a tech touch strategy is how you leverage technology to drive engagement throughout your customer base and throughout the life cycle. I see a lot of folks using Tech Touch as a segment. I am guilty of this as well, but it's actually the motion that you use to engage your customers with tools and technologies rather than the one-to-one hands-on motion. And also, I'll just add to the definition, there's a misconception, I think, based on the conversations that I've been having, that Tech Touch is only for folks that pay you a little amount of money, when in actuality, using tools and technology to engage everyone in your portfolio is smart. And it shouldn't just be used just for the folks that pay you little money that you can't scale with.
Interesting. And when you say it's the Tech Touch motion, can you give some maybe examples of specific engagements that you would consider part of that Tech Touch motion?
Yeah, so it can be everything from, thinking through your life cycle and what direction you would like to see your customers go, and thinking through how do you use webinars, customer advisory boards, in-app messaging, marketing drip campaigns. I'm right now looking at virtual business reviews.
Mhm.
There's some really great options out there for those, which I find to be fun. It's all of those types of things.
Nice. Seth, Yoni, anything that you would add about the definition from your perspective?
Sure. I just say also, like, from a Tech Touch, it's really, from what I've seen, is really also just using technology to improve time to value, both externally for your customers. That's the number one priority, but also they can be leveraged if done the right way, to be as efficient as possible, especially with those one-to-manys, which, Chili Piper in some cases we try and help support. I think the one big piece here is when people think Tech Touch, they think no people or no contact. And I think that is a misconception. It has to be there to help accelerate or help drive that in an efficient way, but there always needs to be a human or a point of contact behind the tech for it to be as successful as it can be.
All right, so that's actually an interesting question that I wanted to ask. How do you create that balance between kind of humanizing the relationship with the customer, but still keeping it Tech Touch to an extent? How do you do it right? Tough one. Who takes this?
I can take it. Firstly, I wanted to say that I agree with the panel here, and it is Tech Touch definition is really about kind of making sure that there's personal touch with the CSMs, which is what we do best, but making sure that we leverage technology to do all the stuff that CSMs don't necessarily want to waste time doing, and it's kind of taking away from that. But I suppose, like, making sure that we do things, making sure that we set in special alerts to know when a particular CSM can intervene when necessary. So, for example, it could be building a health score and knowing that when particular customers are at one side of the spectrum and there's an opportunity for an upsell, or another side of the spectrum, like they're about to churn, then knowing exactly when to come in and intervene and say, actually, hi, I work for the CS team, and can I introduce you to something else? Or can I introduce a new product that you can go in? So it's actually leveraging certain technologies to know exactly when to intervene and come in and make your mark.
I think I'll just add, and Yanni, I think you're spot on, but I think I'll add just one small component. And I see a lot of folks build out their Tech Touch model based on what they think the customer needs, or it's a very inside out motion. And honestly, I'm a customer of many products. I think many of us are. I have, customer success managers at various tools. I have some that I don't even know exist, that they are doing this Tech Touch model. Figure out what your customers actually need from your product and you to be successful. Sometimes I think we're over designing these things and over complicating the customer journey, when simply put, They just want to achieve value. They want their outcomes met. They want your solution to solve the problem they want it to solve, what they're investing in, right? Why they're purchasing. And I think I'm seeing across the board, a lot of folks overcomplicate this. And sometimes it's just as simple as making sure they have the education they need, that your tool works as described, that it's solving the problems that they need, and nothing more.
Mhm.
Yeah, just to build off of that, just spot on from my perspective. I think it's also, you mentioned things about customer journey, your own customer journey, what the customer's journey is. I think it's also, tech can help, but you also have to know what you're trying to do. So what are those outcomes are you trying to drive for your own business or for, that customer? And, thinking about also, once you have, let's say, a customer journey defined, you don't need a tech touch for each phase or different touch point or service. It could be, hey, well, where are the bottlenecks coming from? How can I have my team be as efficient so that we can help those customers at scale to be successful in driving those outcomes? So I think it's, when people, and it sounded like the poll was talking about how they're, people are exploring a tech touch approach. What I would suggest is really make sure that you have kind of your foundations in place, which is identify the customer journey. What are the touch points? Who's involved? Really map it out. And then visually, you can then start incorporating things when and hopefully it's data driven to tell you where you need to maybe find some ways to efficiently support that. So if it's onboarding tech, because you're having challenges to time to value, it's all about time to value. So if you can help accelerate those things, that's one thing. I think Yoni mentioned notifications and a customer health tool. All those things are great. Even Chili Piper from booking tech, right, to help streamline those conversations. It really depends on what you're trying to do, but you have to do the work before, so you don't have too much. Maybe sometimes it's keeping it simple can help really just get that extra edge in the customer for the customer.
Nice. So Seth, can you maybe give some examples of how are you doing this these days in Chili Piper? How is it done, and which type of points? Yeah.
Sure. I think so for us, I've been with the company for about 1.5 years, and we've grown from a headcount perspective about 400%. So, from a scaling perspective, not only for the new business that we have, but just the team in general, we needed to be able to keep up with it. So a couple of things. From a tool perspective, we use PlanHat as our CS tool. What I found is really helpful is I actually have a counterpart. I'm very lucky to have this, but a director of digital customer success. Her name is Marie Lunny. Give her a shout out. Check her on LinkedIn. But she really is that operational support and subject matter expert to allow us to connect the tech. So if you don't have it, I'm not an expert in more operations focus. To have someone who can help connect those things. So we have PlanHat. We use Chili Piper to help book meetings and hand off ownership or distribution. So when we get new business, I don't have to spend too much time. We put in rules and it goes to the right people or the right segment of CSMs. And we also use things to help from a data perspective for triggers and notifications. So I would say, of course, we have CRMs and all these other things, but really our backbone is our CS tool along our own product suite.
Nice. Yoni, you have a strategy in place as well. Do you want to share some examples?
Yeah, sure. I think the most important thing actually is we didn't emphasize up until now is that you have to have good data, and to ensure any tech touch you build on any of your platforms needs to make sure that you have good basis and your data needs to be accurate and actionable. So data could be, for example, customer or user behavior, certain business processes that you have, or any activity that your CSMs have and recorded. And once you have that data, then there's a plethora of things you can do. And what we've done, for example, is have certain playbooks. So if a customer fulfills a particular action, so for example, we have these onboardings, and if a customer completes their onboardings, then we have an automated NPS survey that's sent to the customer. And if the NPS survey is below 6, also known as demoter, then automatically an email gets sent to the CSM to notify with a playbook on what to do when you have a customer now giving you a demoter score. Just an example of how much you can save time for your CSMs having to chase different onboarding tasks, making sure it's complete, making sure that you send. That's just kind of another example that we have.
Nice, nice. I see we're getting some questions about measurement. Anyone wants to take this as that's a topic that I wanted to touch on anyways.
So the first one, what are some examples of thinking about time to value in terms of how you measure in data, in a data-driven way within your Tech Touch model? I'll take part of it. I'm sure others will manage to probably add more color here. Just for full transparency, we are just starting our Tech Touch motion at Swiftly, whereas I've done it pretty in depth at other organizations that I've been a part of. Kind of going to the question around thinking about time to value in terms, I hate to say this, and this is the ultimate answer for everything CS related, but it really depends. It depends on what time to value means for your organization. I do think it's important that when you're talking to your customers to figure out what value means for them or what they are hoping to achieve, aggregate what the value points are. So for example, with HelloSign, it was pretty simple. It was an electronic signature solution. You either purchase our API product, and once the product is embedded and you are, getting your signatures within your product, that is your value point, or you purchase amount of seats. Once the seats are, registered and sending multiple signature requests, that's the time to value. You have to figure out for you what product or what your product is in, you have to figure out for you what value is for your product and then start measuring it. First and foremost, the most important thing is measure something and iterate on it. That's, I think, one of the biggest mistakes people do is they go into these rabbit holes of trying to figure out what does value mean? What does value mean? And then they measure nothing. So have at least a guiding beacon saying, this is what we think, we're going to prove this, we're going to measure this, and we're going to learn what our levers are to control this.
Yeah, I love that. It all depends, right? With the technology you're trying to drive, it could even be by phase, right? So what's time to value in onboarding? Well, how long does it take to onboard in general? What is the time frame are you setting with your customers? What's the expectations? What are those KPIs? I think it can be also just like Miranda was saying, is really making sure that you're getting information from your customers pre-sale. So, what we've done at Chili Piper, we created this project called the Big Six, and it's just trying to capture, personas, end users, KPIs, business objectives, all this information. And we actually challenge our SDRs all the way through the pre-sale to our AEs to get this information, because we want to understand their business. We want to understand, what are they looking and when are they looking to go live before our CSMs even touch the business. Why? Because we don't want to cause redundancies. We don't want to repeat ourselves. We want to be very strategic and understand the goals. Once we have that information, then we can really start pulling back and going under the hood and saying, okay, well, you guys are looking for this solution in X amount of time. I think that we need this, you need this, and we can make that happen from a time to value to get value of the product. But I think it changes as you're in an adoption or a growth phase. Those time to values are different. So having those KPIs and continuing to confirm and vet and validate throughout the customer journey what value means to the customer, and making sure you can tie it back to what you do and the outcomes you're trying to drive for them is a really big piece. And it's not easy to do, right? If this was easy, we'd have AI to do it. So it's really about making sure that internally you have an alignment, you have a game plan, you understand the information and the data, and then you use that to drive and surface and share and celebrate those kind of value props.
Nice. I do want us to be kind of honest with the people who are listening and don't have a tech strategy motion in place yet. When you try and think, what are the cons or what are some challenges that they're going to be facing, maybe even when we think about transitioning customers that are like fully high touch these days and are going to experience some tech touch, what do you say to them? Like, what are the things that they should be looking at?
Yeah, I'll chime in first here on this one. It is not an easy thing to do. I just want to call that out. It's not easy. It's not impossible. So first thing, when you are doing this, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons and you understand why. So internally, be very deliberate about it. Next, if you do have a high touch motion, and we're going through this right now, maybe set up a medium touch, a hybrid motion. So your customers are feeling like they're getting the support that they need. I think this one is often forgotten, and I just want to call this out, but make sure your customers have the ability to be successful without the high touch motion. I think that is where you will fail if you don't. So put your customer hat on and understand, what do they need to be successful in your product, and can they do that without a dedicated customer success resource? What you tell them, that's going to depend on your customer base and what they need to know. Sometimes you can talk to them about having a more pooled CS model. So you're moving them into more of a queue, and that nothing really will change in regards to responsiveness. And these are the 5 other things that will now be available to them. So instead of like you're taking something away, you're giving them more. Some of the things you could have available maybe are customer advisory boards, webinars, a community. So make sure you're not just taking, but you're also giving. And also maybe start with a small group of customers. And if you have a customer that you would put into the trusted advisory category, talk to them about it. Let them know that, hey, business is good, business is growing. We're actually going to start leveraging technology a little bit more. And I want your feedback as you're going through this journey to let me know what's working, what's not working. Our goal is for this to not feel too much different to you. You still have everything you need to be successful. But us be able to like continue to scale and grow. Those are just a few ways I would approach it.
I love that. Very, very similar is really making sure that they're self-sufficient, right? Do you have the enablement? Do you have the materials? Do you have the resources? Also think about risk factor, right? And you mentioned, Miranda, about not maybe taking your whole business and moving into a model. It's be strategic about those changes. So, understand if there's a risk or a renewal coming up. Understand if there's any open, tickets or escalations or things that haven't been resolved, and then also have a plan. Who and how is really another piece to this. Is think about it. Okay, well, if they're not going to have a CSM in that dedicated resource, well, who are they going to have? So one to many, we that's how we do it. We have that pooled support and being able to say, hey, listen, we're always here, but also how, well, this is how you need to, reach out to us. And here are some other resources. I think it's also important to think about not just CS, but what are the other organizations that touch your customers? Is it from a sales perspective? Is it account management? Is it support? Also reiterating that it's not just that one person that is behind your product. It's a whole group of people, and that can also help turn down any type of concerns and say, oh, wait a minute, now I can work with them. What we have is the Department of Customer Love, which is our support team. So, we really want to just try and it's almost like positioning, right? You're just positioning, hey, we're here, but in a different way. And this is going to actually help us get a faster response. So also talk about why it's important, why it's helping them. That's another way, but that's also just messaging, right? Making sure that you can actually do it.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I would add to that is we've also done the pooled approach, and we did the email alias that kind of had everyone kind of the CSMs pull 200 or 300 customers and answer all the questions, and that worked pretty well as well in the same way Miranda said. One thing which I would emphasize is, again, I mentioned data before, but having the right tools and not having too many tools, because often kind of there's so many vendors out there in the market. We have obviously Tango, Gainsight, and many, many other things that exist there. Just making sure you have the right tools that can pull the data that you need to make sure it's accurate. We've chosen Tatango, we've chosen also Ever After for our customer collaboration. And that's really helped us save a lot of time as well to and make sure that we have that engagement with customers and we hold them accountable when they have specific tasks on them, and we have the hub that they can add all their elements. And so just having kind of a place where you can manage things properly with a customer, the life cycle with them, and then and picking the right tools that work for your business.
Very cool.
Not to skip ahead, but there is a question in here about tools that seems to fit really well here. If there,
Yeah, go ahead.
So other tools that we use, so Gainsight Intercom is very powerful for, messaging and sending out emails. I'm trying out Cast App for my virtual business reviews, and also Gainsight. And then partnering with marketing to figure out drip campaigns. We leverage HubSpot on that side, and making sure that there is bi-directional information being pushed from Gainsight into Salesforce, so the account management team knows what the engagements look like for the customer.
100%. Anyone else wants to mention some tech tools that could be relevant? I think that's a question that's always interesting for people.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the factors here, right? We have CS tools, bilateral integrations and sharing data into the right systems is huge. And Miranda, really, that's spot on. You need to make sure that if you are adding more tech to your existing tech stack, think about how it interacts. How are we able to have everything as, a source of truth? And data integrity is important. It's really legit. So when you're vetting a potential tech touch, it's really also important to understand, well, how do they integrate with your major systems? What are your major systems, right? We use Salesforce. Well, we need to make sure bilateral integrations are in place so that if we make a change there, it happens there. How does your product data, if you have product data, how and where is that ingested? Is it a cloud? Is it from a data warehouse? Is it from a direct source? Those will impact your decision making and your buying decisions, right? Because it's okay to have a cool toy, but if it can't work and play nice with others, then you're gonna actually have more work with no results, and the tech is just going to sit there. And then you know how that happens. So really making sure that if you don't know, bring in people from your org who do know and bring them a part of it, because you never know how these pieces of tech can actually help other orgs or departments in what they're trying to do for the business too.
Nice. I see that there's the question that Miranda started answering related to who should be owning Tech Touch. Is that product? And I think I would love to hear from you in general, which departments in the company do you think could be relevant and helpful as you're designing that Tech Touch approach?
I can start that. Actually, we in our CS team, we have kind of our enterprise CSMs, and then we have our we call them mid-market or SMB CSMs. It's a team that looks after the scale of our business. And so a lot of the Tech Touch, it's not actually only reserved to that segment, but it's applied everywhere. But a lot of the Tech Touch instruments are built through the mid-market or the SMB team. Their main task is obviously to be able to talk to a big audience. And so when things work, then we can apply it to the enterprise team as well. So I'd say that it starts with the CS team in our case, who works collaboratively, obviously very well with our product team, our marketing teams, and our support team to make sure that everything is kind of works in unison. And we have obviously weekly meetings and monthly meetings and QBRs internally to show the success of this segment. But that's how we would do it on our side.
Plus one. I don't think this sits with product per se. I think it really does depend on the product. I think it is a ownership across primarily product, marketing, customer success, to think through the motion. Ultimately, it depends on the KPIs that each of the teams are responsible for as well. It's easy to say product, you own this, but if they don't have the KPI that drives the behaviors that we need, or CS, you own this, and we don't have the KPIs to drive the behaviors we need to make sure that the business, the team, and the customer is successful, then it's probably doomed from the gate.
Plus two, totally. That's exactly it. In my opinion, it takes a village. You can't have one team solely responsible for it, because there's so many variables here. Marketing can't own that if they don't know exactly those specific, nuance, and CS can't own it because maybe there's a different type of communication. And what's powerful about all these different tech touches, they can typically be used in different ways. So what marketing can use from the health scores and the information that we're gathering about maybe low adopters or poor utilization can be used to help do some marketing campaigns or attract those people. If there's some ghosting going involved, we can use this data so that we all can help try and address major issues, but how we address them are differently. So that's why I think it does take a village.
Yeah. We're almost out of time. I do want to answer at least 2 questions from the audience. Does any of you want to answer something specifically that you're seeing in here?
I could help. I think that there was one that was anonymous about holding customers accountable for onboarding themselves when given all the resources. I think it's hard to hold people accountable. I think you need to hold their hands. So using tech to have a proactive outreach when you identify that they're not moving forward in a phase that's defined and can maybe help surface other issues. I think at the end of the day is this, it's a really hard challenge depending on the product you're trying to deliver. But if you go back to thinking about just the user experience, you can't expect someone to just use something if the experience or the implementation or onboarding, whatever it is complex. So think about what are the things that are low-hanging fruit that you can do, or you can ask for the customer to do that is easy. So maybe it's, hey, you're trying to get familiar with our verbiage in our system, right? So maybe watch a video. Something that takes a little bit of time and resource, but can really help drive that time to value, and then bring on maybe an implementation specialist to help. But at the end of the day, that's your responsibility, right? It's not the customers. You have to help them on board. And whether it's tech or human touch or dedicated, that's, I think, really from my perspective, that's a CS role. That's a CSM role to really make sure that they're driving value, they're driving urgency, because it's only in the benefit of the customer.
I can take Julia's question about, Julia asked, would love to know how to stimulate engagement in tech touch accounts. So one thing we've done, I mean, the same way, Tom, you did already as part of the webinar here, you asked a question to the audience. So we often in our webinars have interval questions to our customers. For example, if we're doing a product webinar for our clients, then 15 minutes in, when we're showing a particular feature, we would say, do you want to see a demo about this feature, or do you want to learn more about it? And that obviously gives us kind of a segment of customers that have said yes. And so we know to approach those customers afterwards, and rather than approach the whole lot about one particular feature, we know exactly the customers that are interested, and therefore maybe potential for upsell, or we can talk to them about further kind of expansion. So to be really purposeful and deliberate about who you speak to, because obviously you can't speak to everyone. And that's how I would kind of stimulate engagement with tech touch customers as a whole.
Very cool. All right. So this wraps our session for today. I definitely want to thank all of you, our amazing panelists, for your answers. And we're going to see all of you in our next webinar. We do have a Tech Touch tool, so if you're looking for one to automate Tech Touch journeys, feel free to check Ever After out. Thanks. Thank you.